Hi, everybody. We're the Skeleton Crew. This is the third time tonight we have attempted to record this video. MAMENCHISAURUS does not want to be seen, and it does not want to be ranked. However, as they say, when you get knocked down, you get back up again, and then you get back up again, and then you withdraw from the presidential election. So,
you heard it here, everybody. James Napoli is withdrawing his bid for the presidential race.
I hate to tell everybody like this because I know my candidacy was very widely supported and everybody really was excited to vote for me, but I don't really have the millions of dollars necessary to support a presidential campaign, and also I'm 6 years too young to run for president.
I will be taking over the campaign.
We are going to be dragging this long bastard out of that hatchery, kicking and screaming if we must, and it'll take a long time because it's a big critter.
It is. Today we're talking about a dinosaur. This is not the longest neck of any dinosaur, is it? Or it doesn't officially have that now?
No, okay. It doesn't, but basically we will get to that, because it's kind of an up-in-the-air question.
Who are we? Well, we're the Skeleton Crew. And what do we have for you? Many opportunities to part with your money. So, we have an Etsy page. We're selling off pins that we have left over from Midwest Gaming Classic. Amelia's holding one up to the camera. It is shiny and not chrome, but enamel.
Enamel and rose gold plating.
It's beautiful.
And you like it.
Mm-hmm.
Viewer, you like it, and you will buy it.
Yes. Yes. I want to note the one important thing here, which is that we're not making more of these. When they're gone, they're gone. And they're going quite quickly. We're getting a lot of... we've had to pack a lot of Etsy orders the last few weeks, folks. And that's fun. So... if you want one of these kind of limited edition Skeleton Crew pins, head on over to our Etsy page. The link's in the description. All of that is obviously going to support the channel, so you're contributing to what we hope you think is a good cause. But if you want to contribute more directly to that, if you're so inclined, please check out our Patreon page and see if any of the perks we offer to our patrons interest you. We've got a range of different perks, access to our Discord server for everybody, your name in the credits of our videos for everybody. Different perks have access to polls, exclusive content, and at high tiers, a spoken shout out at the end of every video. So pay attention to that at the end of this video. If you like what you hear and you want to be in that thing you heard in the next video, mosey on down to our Patreon page. But obviously, if you're so inclined, support us at any tier. Anything helps. And if you're not able to support us on Patreon, or you don't want to contribute in that way, we completely understand. But we just ask you, leave a like on this video and drop a comment before you go, because anything you do helps us with growing our audience and working that algorithm on YouTube. And we'd appreciate it if you could help us out that way at the very least. So thank you all very much in advance for that. With that, I want to introduce myself briefly. I'm Dr. James Napoli. I'm a research instructor at Stony Brook University's Renaissance School of Medicine, where I teach human anatomy courses to students in medical professional degree programs. Right now I'm teaching a class of incoming, very fresh dental students who are having a wonderful time learning the anatomy of the human body. We just finished the third class. Previously this summer I was teaching PA and physical therapy students. It's possible in the future I'll teach medical students. We're having a great time. It's a cool job. It's wonderful to get to really dive into the anatomy of the best studied and best understood vertebrate while continuing to do all of my paleontological research and get to be a paleontologist. It's really cool. And I'm very grateful to be here.
James, when you said very fresh dental students, the first thing that came to my mind is getting set up in the cadaver lab, and you're like, all right, so let's start with the teeth. And one of them just lifts up the cadaver's arm and starts looking in the armpit. Just I don't know where these are. Very fresh.
Well, they just started their degree is what I meant by that.
No. I fully get that.
To be clear to our viewer, I know you know. I just want to be clear to the viewer who might be like, oh, what does fresh dental student mean?
Cool. My name is Amelia Zilo. I'm a PhD student, PhD candidate. I can't believe I keep making that slip up. For those of you unaware, it does matter, that distinction. PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History. The only dental fiasco of recent times, I have to say, is that a piece of one of my teeth fell out while I was drinking sparkling water not too long ago, 2 hours before I had to catch a flight. It was great. I had a good time. But I had travel insurance, which covered the flight change because Delta was like, screw you. Sorry, you can blur that on camera. Anyway, the point is...
I think they'll know what gesture you were making.
It doesn't matter. Blur it. Put like little lizards on it or something. Anyway, the point is get travel insurance because airlines will try to screw you over.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Did you bonk it or did it just like fall out of your mouth?
Oh no, I was drinking my water and I was like, there's a hard thing now.
Oh, you really aren't dodging those Midwest allegations. Okay.
What?
What do you mean?
Mouth because historically there's less fluoride in the water there. Not now.
Oh.
Not in Milwaukee. I was gonna say no. Our Milwaukee water kicks ass, but no, it
water's
was
90% fluoride.
no. There was stop. It was It was in the 90s, I believe. There was an outbreak of some kind where the entire city was city for like a week.
Oh no.
And so after that, Milwaukee's like never again. And since then, we've had like top tier killer water. In terms of like cleanliness and
okay. That's interesting. I assumed everyone just drank beer there, like in the 13th century.
Yeah, the water isn't clean, so.
No. Anyways, no, I don't know why a piece of my tooth fell out. It wasn't even like near a cavity, like near a filling or anything like that. It was just to add stress to my day because, again, to emphasize to your viewer, I had a flight to catch in 3 hours. And had to make a decision about what to do, if I should go to New York and handle it there, where I would have to probably donate plasma to afford a visit, or just change my flight and deal with it at home, which is what I did.
Excellent.
Well, my name is Scott Johnston. I'm the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician at Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology. And my dental fiasco thing that I will share is that one time I chipped a tooth from eating a salad.
Fork?
I bit the fork weird.
Ooh.
I was trying to be like nice and healthy. It was while I was at the AMNH. It was one of the salads I got from the staff cafeteria. And I was having it for dinner because I was trying to be a good, healthy boy. And I bit my fork weird. And I was like, that
Plastic
made a sound.
or metal?
Huh?
Plastic or metal?
Metal.
I hate that.
Yeah, no, it was a bad time.
Ew.
There's good and there's not good.
That is not good.
No, it wasn't.
Scott, have you finished introducing yourself?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alex Rubenstahl. I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and I once chipped my lower incisor on my left side with a fork because I was so excited to eat a piece of lasagna that I, like, just top off. Actually, no, you can't. I'm not going to get close enough where you can see it. I definitely still have it a little bit.
No.
Stop it. And I've never had a cavity. Those are that's some of my dental stuff.
Ooh, very nice.
That is good.
Yeah. I'm Dalton Meyer. I'm also a PhD candidate at Yale University. Last time we did this, I made a really great and timely Noid joke, which I'm sure all our viewers would have understood.
Avoid the Noid.
Long defunct Domino's ad campaign, Avoid the Noid. I will say, now being newly represented by a union, Union Strong, try to do that if you can. We will finally have dental insurance, and I will be going to the dentist in the fall for the first time in over a decade. But until that point, I've never had a cavity. I don't know if that will be the case now, but I have up until now never had a cavity, and I've not chipped any teeth. So,
Very nice.
All right, I forgot that this fall we get a start. We
yeah.
can go together. We can hold hands on our way to the dentist office.
Very quick, because
Yale
I think
nursing
that you
students.
guys would enjoy this. Have you guys heard what the slogan for Harvard's union is?
No.
It's "We can't eat prestige."
Mm.
That is good.
It
like
kicks ass. They have these signs all around campus that are like a dinner plate with just that on the plate with knife and fork, and then
With the prestige on the plate.
with all of it on the plate.
It's a good movie.
Yes.
Today's episode is about MAMENCHISAURUS.
The word of the day is long.
Is MAMENCHISAURUS. But what does this word mean? In fact, what does any word mean?
We forgot to mention who we are all together.
Oh,
That's
God.
right. Together.
We're the
skeleton crew.
For the fourth time tonight.
There's merch.
Go find it. Here comes a dinosaur. Everyone, look out!
Oh shit! What up?
This one's a really dinosaur-ass dinosaur too.
It's one of the most dinosaur-ass dinosaurs in the game. It is a shame that they still continue to get the feet wrong, but also a good thing, because God's sauropod feet are so awful.
I can see that they tried.
They try to.
Like they make some of the toes bigger at least.
Yeah.
Like a feature of a sauropod, well, Saurischans generally, is that the claw on the first digit 1 is big and recurved, which is retained in sauropods. Because unlike theropods, they don't lose a bunch of their digits, but sauropods still have 5. And in most primitively, Mr. Reed things, Mr. Nose things.
Alex,
in this
this
case,
is the first time you've ever accused me of reading something.
I was going to say,
I know.
Those things, Reed's things.
The late hour brings strange visions and occurrences. But yes, that's just a cool thing. I was trying to teach our audience something neat, but sure.
No,
technicality.
No, please.
Scott's correct.
No. Yeah. We've mentioned before that some of the more derived titanosaurs lose all of their digits entirely and walk on their metacarpals, and it's awful and bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrible thing that they do, and they shouldn't do it.
But you know what that
Shouldn't
is?
be allowed.
A very good segue to phylogeny.
It is
After
a great
Amelia
segue
tells
to
us what the
phylogeny.
name means.
Right, so I will be telling you the name of the type species, because there are multiple species, which someone will talk about at length later. MAMENCHISAURUS means Mamenchi lizard. So it is named after the place that it was found. However, it is not exactly named correctly after the place that it was found. Apparently, and I'm not going to try to pronounce these words because I don't speak Chinese, so I have no idea.
We'll throw them up on screen.
Pronunciations are. We'll put them on the screen. But the locality that it's supposed to be named after translates to horse neighing brook. But because the discoverer, right?
Yeah.
Or the namer at the very least.
The namer, yeah.
I don't think Young actually found the fossils.
Yeah. So the namer apparently had an accent that people misunderstood. So they instead, the actual name as it's written means horse gate brook instead of horse neighing brook. So it's that middle part of the word, which you will see on screen, that is different, but was misunderstood and documented incorrect. The type species is Constructus, which is nice and easy, named for the fact that it was found by construction workers.
Cool.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, because when I was a young child and I heard that this animal was named MAMENCHISAURUS constructus, I assumed that it was named that because it was built like a construction crane, which it very much is. But the fact that it's just serendipity, that it looks like a construction crane, but it was named just because it was found by a construction crew, which actually ended up being a problem, because it is actually pointed out in the description of MAMENCHISAURUS constructus that the fossil was not collected properly. So none of the data of what was articulated with anything else was actually preserved, because it was collected unprofessionally, or what's the phrase that is used? As the excavation was not done systematically in a technical way, all the fossils were fragmentary and disordered, which is a very nice academic way of saying they did not do this well.
Yes, this was done poorly. Yeah, this is one of those things. Anytime I hear a news story where it's like, oh my god, this family found a dinosaur fossil and they excavated it, or an elementary school did or something, I'm always like, yeah! Don't do that!
we've talked previously on the channel about like people who should know better about excavating fossils, doing a bad job with it in the Albertosaurus episode.
Well, they shouldn't have known better. They were surveyors.
Oh, I forgot. I thought that they...
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they
fair
were
enough.
just surveying, and they're like, hey, look, a pristine dinosaur fossil. Do you want to destroy it to get it to a museum? And everybody was like, yeah, sounds great. And they sure did.
In contrast, to share a brief note of what you should actually do should you find a fossil and should you recognize it, is what happened with the Jormungandr holotype, which is that someone who knew what fossils looked like was out hiking on public land and found a chunk of bone and was like, wow, this is a fossil. I'm going to leave it right here and tell the park rangers so that
they gave a
can
presentation on this at our National Fossil Day at Harvard a while ago. So you found a fossil. What next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell someone else whose job it is to know what to do, and you probably, in most cases, you might even get to help out. Like that's what happened with Yorgi. Is then the whole thing was dug out by the public, supervised by the North Dakota Geological Survey and the paleontologists there. So, like, document it, take a picture of it, take coordinates of it, and then call your park ranger or the Bureau of Land Management or whoever is responsible for the property that you found it on. If it's private land, you can also call those people because they'll know what to do about it if you want it to be collected for a museum.
Yeah. Right. Get a professional involved, please. It is
professional. To be clear, a museum or a park ranger or someone whose job it is to do this work.
Mm-hmm. Right. Also, it might be a crime if you try to take it out on your own.
Yes,
if you're on
depending on where
land,
you are.
It probably is. No matter where
probably
you are in
a
the
crime.
US.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, right, because you probably, if it's your land, it's
You're
not
right.
a crime.
Yeah.
You there's a longer moral discussion to be had about who should excavate it if it's your land. But if it's not your land, you're either stealing what is considered to be the property of the landowner, or you're stealing property of the U.S. government. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same basic principle of like when you visit a state park, you shouldn't collect wildflowers or stones or whatever. It's the same principle. So,
but they actually do tell you should take the dinosaur fossils. That's on the sign in small print.
It's take only pictures, leave only footprints. Unless it's a dinosaur fossil, then you could take that too.
Right. In that case, get the son of a bitch in your backpack.
Yes, but no. So it's something that like I'm not sure if the rest of the crew shockingly, this is not something that I remember us talking about. Do you guys get emails frequently about like, hey, I think that I found a fossil. Like, what is this, and should we get it? Okay.
No,
I mostly get crackpots.
I get crackpots a lot. Yeah.
I get crackpots, and it's always like, I've had this, and I've asked other people, and they don't believe me, and I'm like,
okay.
It's a rock.
We do sometimes get those, but every once in a while we get like what happened out in Rockport, which is like we got an email from the developer of an affordable housing complex that were like, hey, we were putting in the foundation of this and we found some things that might be fossil. And then they sent us pictures. We were like, oh, boy, howdy. Yeah, those are fossils. Absolutely. And we went out and picked them up and they donated them. And it was really cool.
What were they?
They were the ones that we initially on the first, we talked about this in the Chronosaurus video, shockingly. But the first pictures that they sent, we thought that they were like mammoth pelvis. And then we got there and they were way bigger and way denser.
Cool.
And they were whale skull bones.
Whoa.
It was the bit that we thought were the wings of the pelvis were the squamosal bones, because like without a good scale bar and stuff, like they kind of sort of look like iliac crests. It's very strange, but yeah, it was a fun day. So Alex, you had a good segue to phylogeny earlier, but then we got sidetracked talking about
that's fine.
What to do if you find
these
a fossil.
Things happen. And now I'm going to talk to you about the phylogeny, or phylogeny, as it's more seriously called, when we're not being silly. And this is nothing to be silly about. This is a long neck.
Not
So
very serious.
MAMENCHISAURUS is a sauropod dinosaur, which I mentioned earlier. One of their features is that 5-fingered hands with a big thumb claw. That's for saurischians as well. So sauropods are, we'll say, in the general consensus, believed to be the most closely related group to theropod dinosaurs, although this is a area of active question and debate based on how similar so many early dinosaurs are. Sauropods start small and get big. Now, unfortunately, MAMENCHISAURUS is the most primitive sauropod in the game. So we're not going to get a chance to talk about any prosauropods.
Nope.
So very briefly, I'm going to talk about early sauropods. So some of the oldest dinosaur fossils in the world are these early sauropodomorphs. These are things like Eoraptor,
Saturnalia.
Burialestes, Saturnalia, exactly. And they're generally small-bodied bipedal animals. Eoraptor has been floated as an omnivore before.
Love Burialestes.
Kind of like, not really what you think of as a sauropod. As the group evolves through the Triassic, we begin to we accumulate these adaptations and these features for what we call a graviportal condition, which is simply big on land. You got to be big on land and move. How you do that? So early sauropodomorphs, things like that, but not so small. So as you go, you get things like Thegodontosaurus, and you get bigger and bigger into Massospondylus, Plateosauroids, and there are fossils that indicate even these early sauropodomorphs reached enormous sizes. So yes, by the end of the late Triassic, it appears that we get what we call sauropoda, so the true sauropods. And by this point, we're getting columnar limbs, and the length and complexity of the fingies is becoming reduced. They're becoming shorter. If you're walking on big columns, you're not. You don't want long fingers. You see this in other graviportal animals, things like elephants, which the hands and feet of these animals are unfortunately modeled more after. Sauropods kind of have their own solution. So as we continue through the tree, we actually begin to get true sauropods in the late Triassic. They're not enormous, but it seems like you have your post-Triassic Jurassic extinction, kaput, and then right after that, you start getting huge sauropods, and primitive ones too. Things like Barapasaurus.
Barapasaurus, right?
Is an early Jurassic species, I believe, from India that could be, I think it's pushing 60 feet long, so more than 20 meters, which is big, which is very big. It's bigger than any land animal today, but, if you told a sauropod person that, they'd be like, hey, it's all right. It's not huge.
I remember, just to have a very short little story here, when I did some work in the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry, for those of you who don't know, the CLDQ is it's now a Jurassic National Monument, and it is one of those cool in situ little localities where you can actually go visit it. It is, because it's a national monument, like it has a little visitor center, and you can actually see the two big metal barns that are the excavation site. And so when I was working there, big metal barns is generous. They're more solar ovens for the people who are working inside them. It's great. Oh, no. It'll kill you. But every once in a while, people would show up and ask for, like, hey, what are you working on here? What do we have here and stuff? And one of us would volunteer and talk about what we were seeing there. Mostly it was Allosaurus, but and frequently it was me that was talking about it because viewers, you might have picked up on this. I like to talk, and
really,
yeah. And so I mentioned once when I described Kamarosaurus that being a paleontologist means that you get to say fun sentences like, this is Kamarosaurus. It's one of the smaller sauropods that we know of here. It's only around 40 feet long.
Right.
Yes. Which again, big. Very big.
Yes. Continue, please.
Thank you for that charming story, Scott.
You're welcome.
Now, as we were. Where was I? Oh, yes. Big. Things get big. So during the Triassic, some of these early sauropod relatives were bipeds. Some were facultative bipeds. But once you get big, too big, you got to get down on all fours. And there are a lot of interesting adaptations that kind of accumulate through sauropods, not just in their limbs. Early sauropodomorph skeletons are what we call aneumatic. So you might be familiar with this idea of pneumaticity in the skeleton. That is when the bones are excavated by air sacs, and they make pockets in the bone. And early members of this group, while they might have had air sacs, if they were present, they're not excavating the skeleton. But as we get up the tree into sauropods, into what we call eusauropods, and further, we see the proliferation of these pleurocoels. And beyond respiratory adaptations, these do another cool thing, which is they make the skeleton lighter because it's not dense bone, it's thin tissue and air, which is cool. And maybe one of the reasons that they get bigger than literally any other land animal that's ever lived.
Almost assuredly.
Almost certainly, yeah. Oh, I'm saying I'm being careful. I'm hedging my bets. So, yes, going up the tree in the Jurassic, we get what are called the eusauropods, the true sauropods. And one member of this group are the neosauropods, the new sauropods. Those are things like we've talked about before, the macronarians, so Camarasaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Titanosaurs, as well as the diplodocids, the long-necked, long tails. But there are some pretty cool early members of this eusauropod group, things that generally didn't make it particularly long past the Jurassic, if at all. One of these are MAMENCHISAURUS, which are usually found to be the closest major group next to neosauropods. There are sometimes some little guys that jump around a single taxon. Another cool member of this group is Shunosaurus, which will be relevant to discussion later, which is generally small, but has a neat feature on its tail. It's got a club on its tail, is this maybe something present in many primitive eusauropods? Perhaps. The other member of this group is, I believe, Cetaceauridae, the ceteosaurs, the whale lizards. A great name for the originally described or named sauropods that were found in England.
Sauropod,
in
Yes.
Europe. Yeah.
I also very quickly
Also
want to say,
Pteridosauria? Yeah, go ahead.
from the way that you phrased it, Shunosaurus is not itself a mamenchisaur, is not recovered as a mamenchisaur.
Did I say that?
No. The way that you phrased it made it sound like
It is not.
you were.
It's outside.
You were. Yes. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Good to make sure. Yes. So if I wasn't clear, it's not a mamenchisaur. It's outside of mamenchisaurs, which is why I said, maybe, tail clubs. We're going to talk about tail clubs later. Don't hit that dial now. Features of mamenchisaurs as a group, I'll love with you. I don't know. I think the neck's pretty long. And for a very long time, they were thought to be an exclusively Asian distribution.
For a while, they were thought to be diplodocids too.
But they're not. They're not exclusively Asian. They found one in Africa several years ago, which just goes to show that we don't know anything, and all of these animals could be anywhere. Good day.
Wait, which is the one from Africa again?
Let me find its name. It's like from the late Jurassic.
What?
Yeah.
Wamwerkadia.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And kind of temporal distribution for mamenchisaurs is, I think it's still middle Jurassic to early Cretaceous.
Yes.
So they have they're around for a little bit. They persist through the end of the Jurassic, most exclusively in Asia, before kind of passing into the obscurity of the unknown fossil record. But they're cool. That's my phylogeny. That's all I got. Oh, and they have actually something you can see quite nicely in this model is that they have kind of a more primitive construction on their skull. What is it? The eusauropod, or So neosauropod skulls are pretty weird. And these eusauropods have some fair similarity. Things like Euhelops, I think, is still a primitive. Actually, that might have moved somewhere. God, their phylogeny is so confusing. It is an area of active work, viewer. There's a lot of work going into untangling a lot of these relationships now. So if you want to get into dinosaurs, sauropod, especially titanosaur phylogenetics, is please help.
It would be a very good area to have people help in.
If you want to do it, hit the gym. You need arms. You got to, if you want to flip any of these bones with any care, you got to be able to.
Oh,
you got to be able to lift.
A fun other quick story I could say is I remember the first time I went into the big bone room at the AMNH was to help Carl and Emmanuel flip the femur of air quotes Amphicelius. And
big air quotes on there, yeah.
Giant air quotes on that. And it was like, I remember like moving that thing and seeing stars. It was rough. It was almost not enough to have to have three of us there.
I mentioned earlier tail clubs. A lot of amniotes have some kind of tail club. Famously, stuff we've covered like Ankylosaurus, big and cool. Those are osteoderms fused to a series of fused caudal vertebrae. Wabam. There are turtles with tail clubs. There are armadillos with tail clubs. All sorts of funky critters.
Even one extant armadillo with a tail club.
Wait, actually?
The pink fairy.
Yeah, the pink fairy armadillo has a tail club. It's
so
very
cool.
small and it's very like dorsoventrally compressed. So for viewer, that means it's very flat. But like, no, Alex, look this up. They have a tiny little adorable Doedicurus tail club.
Fairy armadillo tail. Oh, holy! That's so stupid. That's so funny. That's so cool.
It's really great.
Oh, it's flat. Ew.
It's very flat.
Okay, sorry. Yes. So many animals have tail clubs. Could sauropods have tail clubs? That's the thumbnail. Sauropods with tail clubs? Huge eyebrow. Look at my eyebrow. Yes is the answer. How many of them? Unclear. So there's a sauropod I mentioned earlier, Shunosaurus.
Not to be confused with Shonisaurus, as I probably will at several points during this recording because I keep screwing up those names.
And something that's unfortunate, and maybe I'll say this, and if it it's not intended to feel mean. Something that's unfortunate about some of the descriptions of the sauropods that were collected in this era is that they're mostly represented with illustrations as opposed to photographs, so it can make some interpretation difficult. But the early eusauropod, Shunosaurus, which we mentioned earlier, and it was featured in a segment in Dinotasia, or also called Dalton. What's its other name?
Dinosaur Revolution.
Dinosaur Revolution, where it has a heroic dose of mushrooms, and it meets the machine elves, which is something we'll be making a video about soon.
And by that you mean it kills a couple sin raptors.
Yes. It fights the dangerous and aggressive beings of the psychosphere. Sinraptor. Anyway, it's cool because it has a tail club based on the illustrations we were able to find of it.
Yeah.
And I think I've actually seen this fossil in person when I was in China, but I didn't take any photos.
Wait, really?
I wish I had. Yeah, I think so.
Oh. Huh.
Or at least a very good cast of it. Unfortunately, I didn't know that 6 years from then, I would have a YouTube channel where that would be useful to have. That's all right.
I can't believe you didn't predict that.
So it has a cool condition where it looks like about 3 caudal vertebrae of the tail. Well, what look like 3 caudal vertebrae of the tail are inflated and large, and are, I believe, several vertebrae fused together. They get little but big, and then bigger and bigger. And the very last caudal vertebra is a fusion of a few, and it's large and swollen, and it kind of looks like a club. It's not huge. the vertebra in front of these is tall, and it looks like specially designed, if you will, to accommodate that expanded club. And it also appears that there are osteoderms associated with the club, as far as I can tell based on the illustration provided. I think this is an IVPP. Yeah. At least 3 that they're placing along the dorsal end. So maybe, much like an ankylosaur, but, well, a little bit. They're not like fused into a huge complex. In that the tail vertebrae are fused and there are osteoderms. Is this a pygostyle, you might ask? You might also ask, what is a pygostyle? Well, a pygostyle...
And I would also ask if its grandmother had wheels, should it be a bike? No.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm watching the Shunnosaurus scene from Dinotasia right now.
It's so great.
It's so much crazier than I remember.
It's wild.
It's very funny.
I forgot that it kills the male sign raptor by having a mushroom-induced log roll competition, and you get about a minute slow motion of just them rotating around each other with the sign raptor yelling "Ooh!"
and then getting crushed.
I can't. Yeah. So there is a pseudoscientific theory called the stoned ape hypothesis.
Oh, the stoned ape hypothesis. I knew you were going to bring this up.
Could we be near the stoned Shunnosaurus? And I think that segment's based on a coprolite or something that was there were fungus or something. I don't remember. I remember people suggesting.
Yeah, there's some justification that these animals may have ate mushrooms that could have had hallucinatory properties.
I'll say that's tenuous. I can only imagine what that would do to something with a brain that's like a tube this long.
Oh, I don't think it would ever recover from the trip. That trip would have lasted forever.
When there's no ego to die.
It would have lasted the rest of its life, that's sure. No, this is how mushrooms work in that we can do them because we have a big brain and that's where they get absorbed. But if all you have is brainstem, you just immediately into the brainstem and the heart's like, I don't know what to do, man. That's not how they work. I'm making this up. Anyway, so yeah, they have a tail club. I think as far as sauropods go, they're probably the best case of tail club.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Tail clubs
the
have
other
also,
two we will talk about, and they are more dubious.
Ohnosaurus has been proposed to have a tail club, which I think for a while was MAMENCHISAURUS. Is that one that got pulled out, or am I misremembering that?
If memory serves, at the very, very minimum, Ohnosaurus and MAMENCHISAURUS have always kind of been in this dance of, are they incredibly closely related, or are they a little bit more distant, or are they sister taxon, or are they not?
Wikipedia,
whatever that means for MAMENCHISAURUS.
Wikipedia doesn't list it ever being lumped into MAMENCHISAURUS.
I could just be misremembering.
It could have been. This is Wikipedia. It's not 100% correct.
Fair enough.
Ohnosaurus also, Jesus Christ, it has more species. 8, 9. What is going on?
It's
More species than you can imagine.
Name a genus, please. Name just start splitting these things better. Anyway, so there might be
where we
one,
land on the lumper splitter debate.
There may be one in Ohnosaurus, and a tail club has been proposed in MAMENCHISAURUS, which I only just saw 3 hours ago. My God, that looks more like it's a pathological fusion of vertebra. But I don't know, maybe something, or it's just weird. It wouldn't surprise me if in something with so many vertebra, especially as you get to the end where, honestly, these things become less. You can have a weird distal caudal vertebra and it's not going to ruin your. It's not like having a weird cervical vertebra where it's going to ruin your life.
Well, also, vertebral injuries can cause fusion between vertebrae. And, it's been long hypothesized that sauropods use their tails defensively. So, hell, with Shunnosaurus having at least an ersatz tail club, that indicates that it was being used as a tail club and as a tail weapon to some degree. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that. So the thing as well is that it's only one species of MAMENCHISAURUS that has the proposed tail club, and that's MAMENCHISAURUS hongshuanensis, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And And it looks a bit different from the tail clubs that are seen in Omesaurus and especially Shunosaurus. So, like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this could represent an animal that used its tail defensively and got an injury to those vertebrae and then they fused.
It's certainly possible. It's strangely constructed compared to any other tail club I've ever seen, in that it is not rounded and it's not flat. It is like tall and thin. It is medial-laterally compressed, and it seems to mostly consist of like just the tops of these vertebrae. Now, conceivably, it could be a club or some other structure.
What was going on with sauropods in the Middle Jurassic here? Why are there they're all neck?
They really are, and so like
that's a little bit of a segue, by the way.
MAMENCHISAURUS is like, some species are like over 50% neck. Like it's insane
Too
how
much
necky
neck.
These guys are. And yeah, that is a wonderful segue to how many of these things are there? There are at least 6 proposed species of MAMENCHISAURUS and at least 1 that is informally proposed, but seems to actually be based on some solid material.
Oh god. Yeah, there's too many.
There's a ton of species. Yeah, there is so we have MAMENCHISAURUS constructus, the type species. We have MAMENCHISAURUS hongshuanensis, which is the one that has the tail club. MAMENCHISAURUS sinocanidorum, which it was named in reference to the Canadian-Chinese fossil expeditions that we talked about in the last video about Metriacanthosaurus, that was instrumental in the discovery of Sinraptor. Sinraptor, fine.
Say it right.
No.
It sounds cooler. And then there's MAMENCHISAURUS youngi, that was named in honor of Young, who described the type species. MAMENCHISAURUS anguinensis, which is named after the province, named after the district in which it was found, and MAMENCHISAURUS jingyiensis. I hope I pronounced some of those at least close to correct. Oh yeah, and then there's the one that's informally proposed, that is MAMENCHISAURUS ganyuanensis, I believe is how you pronounce that, which is not formally described but is known from several individuals from juvenile to adult from the Upper Shaximiao.
Of course, right. That's great.
And photographs of any of these are few and far between.
Yes. Of these, MAMENCHISAURUS sinocanidorum is the best documented.
Yes, but some others have better individual material, like MAMENCHISAURUS youngi has, at least, again, to echo Dalton's sentiment just there, has purportedly the best skull of all of these. And it seems like the skull of the MAMENCHISAURUS in-game is based on the skull of youngi, which makes sense because, I mean, it's the one that has the best known skull.
Yes, and
it does seem. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, pursuant to the one in game, there is at least an available in the paper that is like kind of a redescription, at least a reassessment of MAMENCHISAURUS sinocanidorum. There is a photograph of the jaw of MAMENCHISAURUS youngi, and it has this really prominent chin that is on the model here. And so I think it's actually doing a pretty good job of reflecting at least what I can find of the MAMENCHISAURUS youngi material.
Yeah, because some of the other skull materials, again, from what we can find, seem to be like, this guy definitely has that kind of prominent, almost Brachiosaurus like bump in front of the eyes there. Mm-hmm. It seems like from the skull material of MAMENCHISAURUS that is not that actually preserves that region. It almost looks a little bit more Shunosaurus-y and a little bit more like primitive Neotheropod-y. So I wonder if that means anything. I don't know.
Well, it could. Here's all I'll say. I'm actually very impressed by the state of affairs with MAMENCHISAURUS, because everybody is actually
Same.
waiting to make decisions based on detailed assessment of material. Right, like one of my personal pet peeves is when people just kind of propose changes to taxonomy. Like
we
they
talked
say,
about this in Chronosaurus.
Right, obviously this should be that. Well, I don't even mean this, but I don't know, things done that are kind of just usage things, like, I don't know, Gorgosaurus versus Albertosaurus libratus, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, that's not based on new interpretations. That's just kind of a change in usage based on new material and current interpretations of material. I like that all of these species are left alone for right now. And I like that nobody has come in and sniped all the new genera you could theoretically name here.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if some of these species are transferred to new genus names in the future. I don't think there's a particular need to do that. One of my other pet peeves is when people look at two things, usually in left lateral view, and say oh, clearly this one is just a species of that. There's no objective way to do this. There's no reality to a genus where you could test genus membership. The only way to really do that to some degree is if the genus turns out to be polyphyletic, in which case you would want to name new genus names for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That might happen here. But nobody has sniped them. It's very nice to see. Everybody is just doing the work necessary and they're cleaning it up bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very impressed.
Well, one of the cases where I think that it might be pretty solid to name a new genus, and that is MAMENCHISAURUS anguinensis, which, Dalton, you did a bit more reading on, or at least understood the paper a little bit better than I did.
Yes, there was a paper that came out in 2019 that was looking not at the anatomy or the phylogeny of MAMENCHISAURUS, but it was looking instead at where MAMENCHISAURUS anguinensis was found and how old it was. And so the other species come from the Shaximiao and the Fiascos formations, which are both middle to late Jurassic, and that was what was assumed to be the case for MAMENCHISAURUS anguinensis. It was found in what's called the Swinding Formation, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was, when it was described, dated to around the same time. And I believe more towards the late Jurassic. But essentially the study was doing uranium lead zircon dating and was looking at how old actually are these rocks that it was found in, and it turns out they're much younger than it was thought. So what was thought to be 152 million years old is actually 114 million years old, which puts it into the early Cretaceous, right in kind of the end of the Aptian, which would make it 30 million years younger than the other MAMENCHISAURUS species. This, as Scott pointed out, could be some justification for potentially putting it into a different genus. The paper itself makes a point, however, that they're making no claim in any direction. They say, we're not claiming that MAMENCHISAURUS had a temporal range of 30 million years. We're not claiming that the genus is monophyletic, but we're also not going to claim that it isn't. That actually testing that requires detailed anatomical and phylogenetic work that's outside of what that paper was doing. But it should at least raise some hackles that something weird's going on. Because that's a very long, 30 million years is a very long time for a genus to last. Don't let the status of Cenozoic herpetofauna in North America fool you into thinking otherwise.
Or clams, because I'll remind you, viewer, that sure, there's people who are there's a genus of clams that goes to the Cambrian. That's a shell. The animal is the soft part inside. That's not the same thing. I'm sorry, invert people. I don't know what the status of that is. That's a different animal.
Presumably. Yeah, and I think, again, I'm impressed at the restraint here.
Yeah.
Nobody has tried to taxonomically snipe this.
Yes.
I really dislike taxonomic
And to be clear,
sniping.
don't.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Sniper, no sniping.
Sniper, no sniping. I really, really, really dislike taxonomic sniping because the current ICCN code does not really have a provision to prevent it. If I had to make one modification to ICCN code, it would be to stop that from happening. Theoretically, right now, I could publish a list of specimens I've seen that I think might be something different, and just give them names with a brief diagnosis. And I could just write a paper that's hundreds of these for every specimen in case it's different.
Mhm.
And they would technically have priority. So if any of them are ever proven to be a different species, they have to use my name. I obviously, to be clear, I'm not going to do this. That would not be science. That would be effectively the scientific form of the hemipenis measuring contest.
You proud of that one?
Yeah, because, you'd be going off half-cocked is what I'm saying.
There we go.
But
goddamn,
They're not half.
yeah.
No, but
So-
it's funny.
It's funny that way. Yes. Yeah.
It's funnier.
This is
it's
a-
funnier to hear a joke when you say no. It's funny.
It's a funnier joke than we've ever had before.
James is committed to bits you wouldn't believe.
I have.
I
So
would, because it's a spot on the bingo sheet.
no, that's committing to it for too long. Committing to a bit you would not believe is not yet on the bigger sheet. Anyway, technically that would be accepted as, if the paper were published, that would mean I had priority for everything. I don't think that's good. There's a lot of cases, particularly more charismatic theropods, where taxonomic sniping happens kind of a lot, and it means that if you are intending to name something, you kind of have to be more secretive about it, because if people know you're planning to name it, then you always worry. And I'm very impressed at the field of sauropod research that everybody knows there's probably a lot of things to be named in this region of the tree, and everybody is waiting for the right science to be done by the right people to make sure that it's done properly, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because the seedbed curse of theropod worship does not affect these other fields.
I want to take this moment to talk a little bit about the work of my colleague, co-worker at Stony Brook, Dr. Drew Moore. Drew's an assistant professor in the department. He was previously in the kind of position that I'm in. And Drew's a sauropod expert.
And I know Drew better, and we're better friends.
You do know Drew better. I have not had many opportunities to talk to Drew outside of work, but I like Drew, and I think he's a great scientist.
And he was nice to me when I was even more annoying as an undergrad, which is a testament to his fortitude and kindness of spirit.
Yes.
And not a testament to your growth as a person.
Not one bit.
Yeah. So Drew wrote a paper with a bunch of colleagues in, let me get this right, 2020. This was the osteology of another mamenchisaurid called Clamelisaurus gobiensis.
I don't like that name.
It's what is the word? Cacophonous. It's a slightly cacophonous name. Clamelisaurus is from the Jungar Basin. So close to the Gobi Desert. I'm looking through the paper, which is detailed. It is 169 pages long.
Nice.
Beautiful.
That is a paper. It's a great fossil.
Was that his master's or PhD thesis? Was that part of his dissertation?
I assume this would have factored into Drew's dissertation, but I'm not familiar enough with his dissertation to know for sure.
I just remember him measuring so many goddamn seabirds.
Yeah, well, this is not about seabirds. But they ran several analyses, and in their analyses, they coded out the different species of Mamenchisaurus separately. And something interesting happened. Are you ready?
I am.
Mamenchisaurus appeared in at least one of their trees. Well, nope. It's polyphyletic in these trees, as we're covering. Mamenchisaurus sinocanidorum is actually kind of dispersed from the other species they looked at. these are it's sister to Kijanlong Gwoker. It comes up in their implied weights parsimony analysis. We're not going to talk about implied weights in detail right now, but the basic idea here is you can use the number of times the character changes on the tree as a way to assess how strongly you should weight it in your analysis. And so when you run a tree like that, if a character seems to change a lot of times, you say, well, that one's not as reliable, right? This is like, the ratio of the length of like my femur to my tibia, so the thigh to the shin, is probably going to change less frequently than whether or not I have a backbone. Right? So like being a vertebrate or having vertebrae is probably a more significant trait than this. And implied weights is one way that's been devised to try to like kind of balance the difference between those kinds of characters. I'm oversimplifying. I hope it won't stay the best way, but it is a very good way. That said, like we're not talking about it in detail now. We will make episodes specific to phylogeny, but that's just to explain why I specified it. It's an implied weights analysis. So in that analysis, MAMENCHISAURUS sinocandidorum is sister to Kijanlong. And then MAMENCHISAURUS ahochuanensis, the holotype and referred specimen form are kind of both scored as OTUs, or operational taxonomic units. That means they're scored separately in the matrix from each other. And they're in a polytomy, so an unresolved area at the base of a group that includes MAMENCHISAURUS youngi and the Shishigo cervicodorsals, which I think are probably what Greg Paul was using when he assigned, or what he assigned to MAMENCHISAURUS sinocandidorum. Maybe. And then another unnamed taxon in Clamellosaurus. In a Bayesian analysis, they get a different tree. And to keep it very simple, a MAMENCHISAURUS sinocandidorum in that phylogeny comes out with as sister to the Shishigo cervicodorsals, which means they might actually pertain to MAMENCHISAURUS sinocandidorum. The other two MAMENCHISAURUS species, Hochuanensis and Constructus, form a clade together, and then a referred specimen to Hochuanensis and MAMENCHISAURUS youngi go elsewhere in the tree. And so based on these analyses, I would guess that this is indicating that the species or the genus is polyphyletic, and probably a lot of renaming will happen.
Yeah.
One interesting thing also is that in the 2023 redescription of Sinocandidorum, they find it in a very different place. So the most recent tree does not have it allied to the cervicodorsals, and I'll explain why I'm emphasizing those in a second. And it's no longer sister to Kijanlong, it's sister to Xinjiang Titan. And the phylogeny is completely different.
I'm also curious.
This is an actively evolving area of research. And this is why I'm also going to just say caution. And Scott, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fair. I thought that you were done there for a second.
Well, like I've heard a lot of talk about like, oh, we need to erect new genera within like dromaeosaurs because it looks like, there might be weirdness with Velociraptor and whether it's monophyletic. Well, maybe. All I'm saying is the recent tree finding this topology is not enough to start naming these things. You want to wait for there to be consilience and stability with our understanding. Because as you can see, in two analyses from the same paper that are done under different parameters, you get radically different phylogenetic results. And then in a 2023 redescription, you're completely reshuffling everything as more data has become available. And so you don't want to just say, hey, this tree found this topology. We need to change all the names now, right? In the field, we kind of understand there's kind of this waiting period where you want to see, are all analyses converging on this? Is this robust to being tested under different analytical protocols? If it is, if no matter how you run the tree and no matter which data set you use, the animals always kind of form the same relationships, then you are in a good position to start taking taxonomic action.
This would not be a problem if people, and even my dear friend James, followed the sacred method of running it a lot of different ways and seeing how many times you get the one you like. And then being like, yeah, it's probably that.
I like to run one tree.
I know, it kills me.
No, I'm for thorough interrogations of data sets, and I'm starting to do more and more thorough ones. But anyway, Scott, what was your question?
Oh, go ahead, Scott. Yes.
My question was, is the reason why they're being called cervicodorsals because it's hard to tell if they are cervicals or dorsals?
No. So, and this is a good thing to explain. So there are different kinds of vertebrae. There are more kinds of vertebrae than ever before. The ones
Only in mammals.
The ones in your neck are called cervicals because cervix is the Latin word for the neck and also the Latin word for deer. And I don't know why they're the same word. Oh no, it's cervus or cervus, but they're very similar. They're very similar in formation.
I didn't know you knew Latin words. That's so interesting. I wish there was another video where you pointed this out. I
know. So there are different kinds of vertebrae. They're named based on where in the body they are, right? So in your neck, we call them cervical vertebrae. In mammals, we have kind of multiple kinds of vertebrae in our trunk. So the ones that bear ribs in mammals, we call thoracic vertebrae. And the ones that don't have ribs in your lower back, we call lumbar vertebrae.
Those are the ones that hurt.
Those are often the ones that hurt. In reptiles, generally speaking, and this is a very broad generalization because there's some complexity here, but there are no lumbar vertebrae in most reptiles. Crocodilians actually convergently get a few lumbar vertebrae, which is interesting.
Really?
Yes.
They do, yes.
I actually didn't know that.
It's neat. But dinosaurs don't have them. So all of the trunk vertebrae have ribs. And so we just call them dorsal vertebrae because they're just in the back. Then in the pelvis, there are sacral vertebrae. Primitively for reptiles, I think that's 2. And then you get increasing numbers as time goes on.
Yep.
And then in the tail, you have caudal vertebrae. And this is not the full range of variation. I know mosasaurs have pygal vertebrae, right, which are ahead of the caudals. Is that right?
Yeah,
or,
they're in between the caudals and the dorsals, or thoracic.
Where do they go relative to the sacrum? Are they before the sacrum? Or?
They don't have a sacrum.
Oh, right, obviously.
That's the problem, is they don't have a sacrum. So basically, like the pygals are a weirdo zone where the sacrum should be. They're ahead of the caudals. They don't have the hemal arches, but they're behind. They don't have ribs either. They just have transverse processes. Weird. So they occupy the sacral zone, but they are not sacrals.
So yeah, they're kind of like. I mean, they're also kind of like lumbars in that way. Then, if they don't have ribs, like but so there's complexity, and I think other groups might have some specialized vertebrae too. But we can use that as your basic
whales and dolphins. God!
No
whales.
This is a cetacean-free zone. I do not like animals that are nearly as intelligent as me, or in fact of superior intelligence, probably. Now in mammals, the morphological change between the regions of your vertebrae is really sharp. Right? In humans, like the first thoracic vertebra is very different than the last cervical vertebra that it's next to. But in reptiles, that's often not the case. And so we describe there being cervicodorsal vertebrae, which are essentially transitional, where you don't know what you should call them. There are like definitions that are used. One of them is like where the parapophysis of the vertebra is. The parapophysis is an articular point for the head of a rib. And the position of that can be used as a rough diagnostic for like, what should we call this? Should we call this a cervical or should we call it a dorsal? But, there's also clade to clade differences in where it occurs, and it's tough. So calling these cervicodorsals is not saying we don't know what they are, in that we can't identify them. We're saying they clearly come from the zone where the neck is joining the trunk.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And in a lot of older works, they circumvented this by just counting the presacral vertebrae and not specifying how many were in the neck or the trunk. But anyway, the reason we are emphasizing these, and this is the last science thing we should talk about in this video, is that Gregory S. Paul referred those cervicodorsals to MAMENCHISAURUS sinocanidorum because they also come from the Shaximiao Formation. And if that referral is to be trusted,
which, according to your friend's analysis, it possibly could be?
Yes. I mean, the most recent analysis...
said no.
The most recent one said no, but I know there's additional data that they were not able to get at that point. Like I still think data on MAMENCHISAURUS constructus is not great.
Yes.
And so, like... I wouldn't say there's any satisfactory answer right now.
That's fair. But sorry, go on with what you
Yeah.
were saying.
Well, if those go to that animal, they would be. I think it would have the longest neck of any vertebrate, right? Or it would make it one of the largest. Or no, it would make it just one of the largest sauropods ever.
It would make it one of the largest sauropods ever, and it wouldn't be the longest neck. That there is a very enigmatic, like provisionally referred to as Barapasaurus. That's at BYU in Utah. BYU 9024 is its specimen name, and it is, if you ever see like depictions of Barasaurus that are like kaiju sized, not just like regular sauropod big, but advanced big, that's what this comes from, is that these cervical vertebrae are immense and possibly indicate an animal that was one of, if not the largest sauropod that's known. And did one of you just run into the wall? Sorry.
That was me. Sorry.
Me too, brother.
But okay. So to put it in perspective, the BYU air quotes Barasaurus vertebrae have been estimated to have made a neck that was 17 meters long, which is absurd, unreasonable, ridiculous. And it was estimated that these MAMENCHISAURUS Sinocanidorum ones would have made a neck that was like 16-ish meters long. So like about the same length, but not as long. Like still, these were in the ballpark of the same size animal, at least if a length estimate based off of two vertebrae are robust.
I mean, and I mean, like, are you talking about the two cervicodorsals or the ones that are actually part of Sinocanidorum?
I'm talking about the cervicodorsals and, well, also the ones of Barasaurus, because, or the air quotes Barasaurus, because I think those are also two isolated vertebrae.
Are they? I did think there was more, but I'm not incredibly certain.
I could be wrong on this.
Yeah, I'm currently looking. I believe Drew does not support the referral of those specimens
to Barasaurus.
Yeah, here are comments. No, I'm talking about the cervicodorsals.
MAMENCHISAURUS.
Also, Moore considers them to be just cervicals, mid-posterior cervicals, not cervicodorsals. Okay. Yeah. But it can't be identified confidently because it doesn't overlap with the holotype.
Sad.
Yeah. So yeah, they're just like, yeah, we can't know. Right. But yeah, if they do pertain to Sinocanidorum, it would indicate like an extremely large maximum size of the animal, probably. Mm-hmm. There's actually a lot of math that Drew has done to try to reliably estimate these neck sizes. I know there's actually future research coming on this. He talked about it at SVP last year in a really, really interesting talk. So there's a lot more coming. I think there's a lot of active work to try to understand these animals and how you deal with them. But that's kind of where we are right now. But I think where we should be is perhaps in the species viewer.
I think it might be time.
Indeed.
How do we feel about our long fellow?
It's fine. It doesn't impress me, but it doesn't offend me. God, I don't remember what any of the other sauropods look like, other than that one that I really don't like.
Coward.
Which one do you really not like?
The one Dreadnoughtus that looks like an elephant.
Oh, that's a terrible design.
Yeah, no, like just that one. The others, they're all kind of vaguely fine. Is this the best of them? Do we think, I know you guys are all going to give your rankings. I'm just trying to think, The
Of the
Brachiosaurus.
sauropods?
Where's
No.
yeah? I don't remember. I don't remember any of them.
Brachiosaurus is definitely better than this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Where do we have Brachiosaurus?
Brachiosaurus we have in S tier.
Oh, okay, that's way higher than I would have thought.
Sauropods rank relatively low for us. Well, at least
Yeah,
the movie Brachiosaurus gets up in S tier. The first movie and the Frontier version get up in S tier. The JP3 version's in B.
of the Brachiosaurus. Well, right, that one's really ugly.
Yeah, that one's really ugly.
I'm sorry. Are there any in A? Or are there others in S?
Yes, actually. So we have Amargasaurus in A. Oh, and Nigersaurus is in A as well.
Okay, hold on a second. I need to remind myself of what the Amargasaurus looks like.
It's a
Looks
friend.
bad.
The Amargasaurus doesn't look bad.
Whoa!
Oh, I don't like it in this game.
Oh, I like that a lot better. Okay. Yeah, this one's not bad, but I do like the Amargasaurus a lot better. I will give this a B because it is not bad. It's just kind of plain. I wish they did more with the colors or something. I really don't like that it holds its neck way the hell up there. That looks stupid. Don't do that. I don't care whether it could or not. Just don't. Yeah, I'll
You
give
look
it a
stupid.
I know. What?
What's happening tonight? What's going on?
Bad things. No, it's fine. Yeah, I will stick with B. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, but it is not as good as Margosaurus, in my opinion.
Fair.
So I quite like this. I love the brief appearance of MAMENCHISAURUS in the Lost World.
It's really cool.
So I do have a fondness for this animal in the Jurassic franchise. I know this isn't the same model, but I like it. It's a little plain, and I'm fighting to not let that sink my ranking one tier lower than I want to give it, because I must say, I think it's just a pleasant kind of generic sauropod, long neck. So they get the main thing we definitely know about these animals is that they had long necks. It feels like a 90s sauropod, which feels very comfy to me. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but I do like it. And I think I'm going to give it an A. I can recognize that it's a little too bland to be S tier, but I like it very much. And I think if I were going for generic sauropod in the background of a screenshot or something, this is probably what I would use. It's got a good shape.
I'm gonna follow suit on that. I will also give this an A. This is kind of this strikes, at least in this game, platonic ideal of sauropod. There's just when I think sauropod, I think this. And I will also counter that I really like that it holds its head up high like this, because I think that one of the things that makes it kind of stand out a bit is, so I'll say I like the design. I don't like the gameplay. I really don't like that this thing needs to be housed in Rhode Island that is also all trees and you cannot see it. It requires so much space and so much foliage, and it makes it really, really frustrating that and I know it's supposed to be it's a sauropod, it's difficult to house. Yeah, of course, but what frustrates me is just the gameplay thing of that the trees that are used for food for the animal for some reason cannot count as forest for it. So that is incredibly frustrating. And if they could just make it count for both, it would be it would make more sense, because for so many of the other animals, it's fine, it works, whatever. But for this one specifically, because it has such a high forest requirement, it's so difficult. And so it makes me not want to include it in my park, even though I really enjoy it. Because one of the things I do like is in those big dense forests, the trees are they're 75% up on the neck. So it just has the very top of the head sticking out over the top of the trees, which I think is lovely. I I wish it had some more interest. Like, I'm okay with the color patterns it has. Like, I don't need a sauropod to be super big and flashy. Would I love it to be with some bold patterns? Absolutely. I wish it had more interesting sounds. I am a frontier skin a dreadnoughtus apologist until the day I die. Especially like the sounds that it makes in The Lost World. Kind of cooler. Big bassy kind of honks and stuff. Really cool. I think it's neat. But I will give it an A. I think they did a pretty dang good job with it. The neck could probably be beefed up a little bit near the base, but like I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing with some of these more retro sauropods. And at the end of the day, what this is to me is, as other people have said, this is a comfy 90s sauropod and everything. It is charming. I think it's pretty good, you know, feet, whatever. It brings a almost peaceful and nostalgic vibe to my mind. I like that it, as opposed to Scott, I like that it needs special trees for hiding and special trees for eating. It's very shy. This is an easy A for me. I like him, and he likes me. That's all I gotta say. I think he's neat.
I'm torn. I'm torn from stem to stern. No, what I'm doing is I'm trying to
way worse.
Make this work in my mind with the last sauropod that we have to do.
What's the last one?
Alamosaurus.
Ooh. Remember.
Right.
And I don't want to I don't want to give away the ghost too much in terms of what I'm thinking about Alamosaurus, but I'm thinking that these can coexist in my mind at the same level for different reasons. I really like the MAMENCHISAURUS. I think it's pretty. I think it's peaceful. I like that its colors are I like that it has nice colors that seem naturalistic and not ostentatious for a sort, but they're pretty. They're very pretty, and you can make one that looks kind of like a giraffe. You can make all kinds of nice color combinations with these. They just look good. I think that they put more attention. The head's not perfect, but they put more attention to detail in the head than you might even expect that they would, given the state of what we know about MAMENCHISAURUS and what's published and what's easily findable. I think the proportions are cool. I like having the really long neck. I like how it's really wrinkled at the base of the neck, and you can kind of see those move as it walks around. I think it's treated quite nicely. And I actually think it's up amongst my favorites in the sauropods of the game. I almost feel like I treat Amargasaurus and Nigersaurus kind of separately because they're not big.
That's the reason I didn't see them on the
I know they're sauropods, but
on the tier list for a second.
Of the big sauropods in the game, this is up amongst my favorites, and I'm going to give it an S.
Ooh, very nice. Alrighty. Well, I think the S and the B cancel each other out, and this guy ends up in A tier with his contemporary Chunkingosaurus.
All right. Is it that time?
It is indeed that time.
We made it.
Spin.
That wheel.
It's. I'm happy it's mostly good ones.
Yeah.
Oh, it really is.
Oh,
I'm going to be punished for saying that.
No, you're not.
This one.
Nice.
Oh, okay, we're going back to the skies.
Thank God, back to the seaway. Oh,
Indeed.
It's appropriate because guess what I have on my beverage container?
Look at that.
It is Geosternbergia.
You know what we can do?
Photos.
Or is it Pteranodon Sternberg?
We could take either Dalton and I could take
Tune
a
in
little
next week to find out.
Of the yes, tune in next week. Dalton and I could take a video of the Geosternbergia perched over the new Peabody opening.
Do you have Geosternbergia proper, the one with the stupid nice?
Yeah. That might be
Very
fun.
nice.
We could kind of do a Chronosaurus thing. Yeah, sorry.
Let's do it. Well, you know what time it is? it's the time where I'm going to read the names of our patrons. I'm doing the reading. Thank you very much for your support of the Skeleton Crew. Starting with Benjamin Seepser. Nickname, Philip Fico, Christopher Bellis-Jones, Aaron Anderson, Adamolos, Blacklight Virus, Camphibia, Dan O'Kyrus, Dino Dom, King Zashu, Max Ironpaw, original username, Pythonic, Ryan Wants to Die, Swamp Ape Science, Wanderer, and Wheat.
Wait.
And that's it. Yes. Thank you all very much for your support of the Skeleton Crew. We could not do this without you. So thank you very much. And tune in next time for you to see us talk about Geosternbergia. Is this going to be our last pterosaur?
No.
Pterodactyls is still on there.
Tapajara.
We got a lot of... Actually, so we have
never mind.
A number left.
Okay, well, we'll talk about them again, but we'll talk about them again first next week with Geosternbergia.
Yes.
Time.
All right. It's the ever-flowing river.
A flat circle.
My
Due
ass,
to the linear
ever-flowing
nature
river.
of it.
in the blood way. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.